Good morning. Welcome to The Human Author. My name is Jen Cantwell, and today I'm working on the fifth book in my Light Chaser epic fantasy series, The Warning. If you'd like to learn more about the series, you can visit my author website at jbcantwell.com. I'm going to do something a little different today. I'm going to go ahead and just read for the day and then sign off and do my dictation separately. If you have an opinion on this, if you're only coming for the first 10 minutes, or if you're actually sticking around for the whole episode, let me know. Email me at jen, at thehumanauthor.com. So I'm going to go ahead and read what I did on Friday. We are on chapter 12 of The Warning. Where did you find all these? I asked. I couldn't believe he'd managed it. There was a group of chambers down one of the longest hallways. I was able to get inside one of them, but it was enchanted. He held out his arm, and I could see the vestiges of a terrible burn mark as it healed. I need to take a step, he said. It was terrible. Just stepping foot into that room was enough to get me running out of it again. Luckily, there was a large chest just outside the door. That's where I found these. And that was all? I asked. 10 full vials of light? He shrugged. There were some other things too, but they looked terrible. Learning about light from you, I focused on carrying just these. What do you think? I think we should go back, I said. We don't know what other vials it might hold. Truly, I was hoping that he'd been mistaken. Maybe there was more to be found in that strange, enchanted room. Are you sure? He asked. I know I succeeded this time, but we don't know what's out there. I glanced out the window, watching the sunrise over the castle. The wicks are gone, I said. I think we should look for anything that might be useful for us in the castle. Then we can head out as soon as the sun sets. How's that? I want to see what else there is. I want to see what else is there, Brennen said. But you won't be able to get inside, Kenneth said. Not without hurting yourself. This was no small burn. Only the light had been enough to heal my skin. I tried not to think poorly of him, but I couldn't help being angry that he'd drained an entire vial. Wouldn't it be all for me? Let's get out of here, I said. We'll find what we can. Maybe there was more back in those rooms. Kenneth shrugged. If you say so, but I don't want us blowing through all this light just because we got greedy. This irked me, even though I knew he was right. Who was he to question me? This was an arrogant thing to think, but I thought it nonetheless. I could do things that neither of them could manage, and I felt certain I'd be able to gain access to those rooms. I don't think that will happen, I said. I want to investigate. Brennen quickly jumped out of the bed and put on his traveling pack. Kenneth followed suit, and a few moments later, all of us were out the door. I considered getting down on all fours again, creeping our way through the castle, but Kenneth seemed unconcerned. He walked upright, seeming certain that there was no danger left at all. It took us 10 minutes to reach the other side of the huge castle. It was dark inside, and I wondered how Kenneth had made his way to those particular rooms. Then I saw it. In a holder as tall as my head sat a torch, still alight since the last time it had been used. It made me think of the fire in the grate back in the room. Had this been Varric's magic? Kenneth didn't wait. He grabbed for the torch, then passed it to me. Since you're the one with magic, I think it makes sense for you to carry the torch. I didn't disagree, so I took the torch from him, holding it out in front of me as we took slow steps toward the chambers. Deep in the castle, the sunlight didn't come through. In fact, each room that we passed by was windowless. I couldn't imagine why, other than the thought that the rooms had been used for the most unsavory of purposes. But when I looked inside, I didn't find any bodies on the floor. Perhaps they had all been transferred down to the dungeons in the end. It didn't take after that for us to reach an open doorway. The chest Kenneth had described was situated just behind the last doorway in the hall. We'd made it. Maybe there's more light inside. But then I looked over at Kenneth, investigating the skin on his arm, just barely healed. I felt certain what we were about to do would not be easily accomplished. We came to a stop in front of the door, and Kenneth turned. "I don't know what else you think you're going to find," he said, "but I suppose having this light would be enough to heal you. It'd be. I'd rather take it with us, though." This wasn't a bad idea. Part of me knew that he was right, that we should escape while we had the chance and only use the light in the most dire of circumstances. But my curiosity was getting the better of me, and I ignored him. I walked right up to the opening, then reached out my hand toward the chest. I looked back at Kenneth, noting the air wasn't hurting me at all. "Why isn't it burning like you said?" I asked. He looked confused. "I don't know. I thought it was enchanted. This burn was no joke." An idea was starting to form in my mind, the idea that maybe I was immune to this type of enchantment. Carefully, I took one step into the room. Behind me, Kenneth gasped. "You're being stupid," he said frankly. "You don't know what you're getting into. You're—" But he couldn't deny the fact that stepping into the room didn't hurt me at all. "Maybe it's because I have magic," I said. I took several more steps inside, turning around and taking the room in. I thought that Varric would be sleeping in the last room, and that was still a possibility. But this place, it was undoubtedly guarded, if not by him, then someone else. I walked to the far end of the room, and what I saw there made my heart leap. It wasn't more light, but a staff. It had been several weeks since I'd held one, these most dangerous weapons to any sorcerer. Suddenly, I wondered if Varric had also been unable to gain entry into this room. "It's a trap. It's been set for you by Torin." I knew this was a possibility, even a likelihood, but as I turned around, searching for more light, I found instead a pile of gold stacked upon a side table. I glanced back at Kenneth, then made for it. He started to argue, but then he saw what I did. His eyes widened, surely imagining what such wealth could buy somewhere like Eagleview. Or maybe some other kingdom, maybe somewhere far away from the fight. For a moment, he put one foot through the doorway, but he quickly pulled it back again, hissing at the pain and gripping onto his calf. "Why won't it let us in?" he asked. "You're in there. I know you have magic, so can't you remove the enchantment?" "I don't know," I said, stuffing my pockets with gold coins. "Did you see anything else when you were in here?" I opened the drawer in the table, searching for any other treasures to be hidden there. I was not disappointed. In the drawer was a small cache of gemstones. I picked one up, a red ruby, and held it up to the fire of the torch to examine it. I tried to imagine what a simple stone like this might purchase. We would be rich in just about any kingdom or city. Not in Eagleview. No, we would need to hide these riches before we entered the city. If what I was thinking was true, we could expect to be imprisoned upon our arrival. I would be lucky to hang on to this staff. I held out a handful of gemstones, showing the others what I'd found. Kenneth stood at the doorway, nervously moving back and forth, perhaps waiting for me to cry out in pain. But there was no pain, only treasure. "Did you see any other light when you were in here?" He stopped pacing. "No, but I couldn't get all the way inside now, could I? I would love it if you would come out of there. What you have is enough, isn't it? Is it worth risking your life yet again?" I recognized the truth in his words, but it was difficult to tear my eyes away from the many things held in that space. "Bree!" When I heard Brennen's voice, I knew I needed to leave the rest of it behind, at least for now. I walked to the doorway, holding out the gemstones and dropping them into Kenneth's waiting hand. "I'll come out," I said, "but there's more here." "The last time I checked, one couldn't survive by eating rocks alone," he said. Brennen reached up and took a couple of the gemstones. He held one up as I had, investigating it. I wonder if it has magic too, he said. Then, after getting a good hard look, he slipped them into his pocket. I don't think you should be the one carrying these, Kenneth said, a surprisingly angry look on his face. And why not? Brennen said defensively. We don't need to argue this, I said. Each of us should take a few. We don't know if we'll be split up again. Kenneth glared at me. Seems to me you are the only one who's usually leaving us behind. I crossed my arms. That's not fair. You've been gone for hours. How is that different? His face fell and he shrugged. What, just because you're a man? I asked. I was surprised when he laughed. You're calling me a man? I'm 16. I don't think that matters in a time of war. None of us are kids anymore, not even him. I gestured toward Brennen, and he stood up tall, taking it as a compliment. Well, I think we should, Brennen began. No one asked you, Kenneth snapped. But she just said, he said, we're all adults now. I smiled at this, recognizing the silliness of this conclusion, but I couldn't deny that he had been the one who'd eventually saved us from Varric. He deserved respect, even though he was still so young. Maybe let us do the navigation, I said carefully. But you're right. Each of us should get a say in decisions like these. Tell me, what pose? Brennen raised his chin, a comical action given his height. I say we leave as soon as the sun sets. We haven't seen Wicks for hours, and the light will only hold us over for so long. I shrugged, staring at Kenneth. He's not wrong, I said. Fine, Kenneth said, but I lead. I won't argue with that, I said. I turned to Brennen. We will still need you to forage. It makes sense that you go last. Brennan's face fell, but he nodded in agreement. And so the deal, we would leave at sunset. I just hoped the skies would stay empty. Next chapter. 8 hours later, we found ourselves slinking through the square, trying to avoid the many skeletons that littered the cobblestones. We didn't speak, just walked toward the gate. Wide open now, for how long, none of us knew. I was just about to take a step through it when Kenneth grabbed onto my shoulders and pulled me around. He looked up at the opening warily. I think we should, he said. What if Varric has enchanted the exit as well? It might be quite an escape. He looked down at Brennen, his face concerned. I looked up at him, so tall now. It seemed like he'd grown several inches since I'd last seen him in Eagle View. You've changed in a lot of ways, too. I wasn't sure I believed the idea that the exit was enchanted, as those rooms had been, but I still held out my new staff, lit the tip with fire, and threw a bolt of power through the opening. It didn't make it through the opening. Instead, it rebounded against some sort of clear defense. Again, I imagined Varric trying to figure out if he had been the one to enchant this particular part of the castle. Somehow, I doubted it. Okay, you were right, I said. I was hoping I was wrong, he said. What do we do now? I sat there for nearly a minute, thinking hard. I was surprised, though, when Brennen stepped forward. We'll need to find another way out. Simple, he said. I wasn't sure about this idea, but I supposed it was a possibility that there could be a secret exit from the kingdom. What do you think? I asked, turning to Kenneth. I'm not sure I'll be able to take this down. He looked up at the top of the opening, where several jagged pieces of wood still hung down. The question is, how did Varric get inside? Okay, that is everything from Friday. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here. Again, if you have an opinion about listening to the full live stream of dictation, please let me know. Email me at jen@thehumanauthor.com. Until then, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll be back here tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock Pacific.